Welcome back. Yes, it's Talking Pints. It's that time of the day now in the immediate after World War II period. The BBC came up with a programme called Woman's Hour, and someone that presented it for a remarkable 33 years, I think she does actually genuinely qualify as a broadcasting legend, is Dame Jenni Murray, and I'm very pleased to say she joins me for Talking Pints.
Now, I have never drunk a pint. In fact, I don't like beer. So what I opted for was a vodka and very slimline tonic. And this is the first time in my entire broadcasting career that I have sipped alcohol with a microphone on me. So cheers.
Cheers. Welcome.
This is a whole new experience.
Well, GB...
Very nice.
Is it well made?
Yes.
Good.
Very well made, with ice and lemon. Perfect.
Couldn't be better. Well, you see, GBNews is here to do things a little bit differently, and that's what we do. It really interesting to think, 1946, this new programme comes along, which must have been sort of, in a way, quite radical for its day.
It was very radical. What was really radical about it was presented by a man for the first few months, and there were lots of complaints from women saying, why do we have to have a man broadcasting to us about these kind of subjects? People assumed that in those early days it was very soft and it was all about knitting and cooking.
But it wasn't.
Not true. Absolutely not true. You know, there were lots of discussions about my job. What kind of job can I do? How easy is it going to be for me to work? There was a whole series about the menopause. You know, everybody's up in arms at the moment about the menopause. Oh, my goodness, we can't get our HRT. 1946, Woman's Hour was talking about it.
And you were a young girl growing up in Barnsley in the 1950s, and this programme...
1950, and so my mother always used to say, you know, there was a very strict feeding schedule in those days, 4 hourly. And 2 o'clock in the afternoon, which is when the programme used to be broadcast, was broadcast at that time for years and years and years. And my mother always used to say, now, I'd been busy in the morning, I'd done the washing, I'd cleaned up the kitchen, I'd prepared the cake for your dad when he was coming home, and 2 o'clock I sat down to listen to Woman's Hour, and I fed you at 2 o'clock. So clearly I was raised.
It was meant to be.
I was raised on Woman's Hour.
It was meant to be.
Absolutely.
And you obviously do well at school and university, but you decide that broadcasting is what you want to do.
I thought I wanted to act, you know, from being very small. My mother, for which I am eternally grateful, sent me for what are normally called elocution lessons. My teacher called them speech and drama lessons. But it did teach me how to use my voice and all that sort of thing. And I loved always being in the school play. In fact, my maths teacher, who told me to leave her class in the 4th form because her name was Mrs. Aviard. And those of us who were not very good at maths called it Aviard's graveyard, unsurprisingly. And she was standing at the front of the class and she put a calculus question to me, and I was completely befuddled. And she said, Jennifer Bailey, I was Jennifer Bailey in those days, have you been learning poetry again and performing in the school play? And I said, yes. She said, yes, is this the reason why your mathematics is so appalling? I cannot understand why a girl of your obvious intelligence is so hopeless. I suggest you drop the subject, which panicked me because I thought, well, I'm not going to get into university. So I went to talk to the headmistress about it, and she said, look, if you do a science, you'll be all right. In those days, you didn't have to, it was a long time ago, you didn't have to do maths if you did biology, physics or chemistry. I did biology, walked it.
Good for you.
Fine. So I got in.
But then in many ways in life, the great skill is to find what we are good at, and then we can love what we do. And I think so many people go through life and never find the thing they're good at. And I have to say, whoever did the elocution lessons or speech and drama, well, what a job they did. I mean, the late Charles Wheeler, and another great broadcaster, said that you had the most beautiful voice on radio ever.
I know.
It's quite
I
an
loved
accolade,
him.
isn't it?
I knew him when I worked on Newsnight. I worked on Newsnight before I went to the Today programme and then on to Woman's Hour. And Charles was the most charming, and also, I was a young journalist suddenly working on a big national programme, Newsnight, and it was terrifying, absolutely terrifying. And Charles was always there to help. He was really kind, and if I was stuck on trying to get some writing right, he would come and help me. He was
he was a proper gent, wasn't he? Absolutely.
A proper gent, a beautiful writer, and he also had an extraordinarily beautiful voice.
And of course, father-in-law for many, many years.
Yes.
To the current Prime Minister, which...
Correct.
Not many people will
No
know.
longer.
No. So, I mean, Jenni, you go on.
Oh, I'm sure I shouldn't have said that.
You go on, you know, and you take the helm of this programme, you know, which was already incredibly well established, had been around for just over 40 years, and you stay there for 33 years. I mean, did you love doing it? Did it become... Did you feel it was you in the end?
I absolutely loved it. You know, I would wake up in the morning and think, how did I get to be so lucky? Because,
did you really?
Yeah, I really did. Because the programme covered everything I would have been interested in anyway. You know, the books I wanted to read, the plays I wanted to see, the music I wanted to listen to. And then it also, because I got a lot of current affairs experience after having worked on Newsnight, we covered politics and current events and everything.
I know.
Yes, I know you know.
I've...
Yes, we have had an encounter, I think, at some point.
Yes, I appeared on your programme, and yeah, it was good. I mean, it was interesting, wasn't it? Because, you know, the way that you did politics, as it were, as it was perhaps in a much gentler manner than perhaps a Paxman would or someone like that.
People might
but very revealing.
suggest that it was gentler, but...
In style.
In style, but I always got underneath it.
Yeah.
The way to do it, I often think, is to lull people, which you might be doing now, into a false sense of security, and then the killer question.
Well, you did it very, very well. And women's issues, I mean, you must be very proud of being part of that. And it's been a movement, really, hasn't it? It's not a left or right issue, a movement that women have advanced in society through those years.
And we are currently at a very worrying moment.
Yes, I know you've spoken out already on this trans issue, which seems to get, for many people, more confusing by the day. I think the American swimmer, Leah Thomas, you know, somebody who'd gone through male puberty, 6'3", big hands, is 550th ranked man in the world, and suddenly, as a woman, is winning everything, and people are very confused and very concerned. And you might have heard earlier, I did a little report about
the little girl in school.
I mean, this is horrifying.
I read about that this morning in the papers. It is absolutely horrifying that a school allows a whole group of girls who've been persuaded by somebody talking about it's okay to be trans and, you know, biology doesn't matter and all of that nonsense that's coming out, and to allow a whole bunch of girls to attack a girl who says, no, hang on, biology does matter. There are two sexes. You can't change your sex. You can change your gender, but you can't change your sex. So many people, I think, have been confused about the difference between sex and gender, and that was really what made me cross the first time. I was one of the early ones to get into trouble for it. You know, people keep accusing me of being a TERF, a trans exclusionary radical feminist. I'll take the feminist, I won't take the radical. You know, a woman with a husband and two sons can't call herself a radical feminist, really, can she? But I am not trans-exclusionary by any
No, I mean, we're
means.
not talking here about intolerance towards other people, are we?
Not at all. What I became angry about was the suggestion that, number one, you could change your sex, you could stop referring to women as women and refer to them as period havers or bleeders, or, you know, all those ridiculous things. Talk about breastfeeding as chest feeding. And I just thought, hang on, you can't change the language. You cannot erase women.
Do you think there's a fight back now coming?
Yeah.
I feel it.
Yeah. That There is, definitely. The best thing was just before the election, the local elections, was the group who said, respect my sex if you want my ex, because we ain't going to vote for anybody who can't tell us what a woman is. You know, we have to be really clear
I think there is a
this.
fight back coming on this. I really, really do. And being such a public figure, you know, you've shared many things. I mean, you shared the fact that you had cancer, breast cancer, and you couldn't avoid sharing that, I suppose, because you were away, and you've dealt with that. And your most recent fight is against diabetes.
Well, it was against obesity, really.
Yeah.
I mean, I never became type 2 diabetic. I was teetering on the edge of type 2 diabetes.
Yeah.
And I changed my doctor. I used to have a lovely woman, and she, like me, was fat. And she never said, I think it's time you lose weight. I mean, my weight just went up steadily over the years as I dieted and stopped dieting.
None of it worked.
Dieting doesn't work because your body becomes very acutely aware of, it's all the little hormones rushing around to your brain saying, oh my God, she's starving, make her eat, and you become terribly hungry. It's a very complicated process. But my new doctor, a man who I love very much, and he said, look, I really think it's time you did something about it. And I did. I had surgery because I knew it was the only way, because I dieted and not dieted, and not dieted. And I thought, why ruin your life by constantly being on a diet? Because I actually quite enjoy food. And so I had the surgery. A very large proportion of my stomach was removed. And it was all quite frightening. But actually, after it was done, it wasn't frightening at all.
Good.
I've lost more than half my body weight.
Well done, you. And you've now got a new Ukrainian family living with you, I understand.
I have, yes. Oh, my goodness. Saturday night, I was invited to one of my very close friends' birthday parties. And I thought, OK, how do I handle this? Party starts 7:30. Eurovision Song Contest starts 8 o'clock. I have to be back home in time for the Ukrainian and the UK performances. So I left the party very early, and we all, the three of us, sat there, mum, son, he's 17, and we watched it. And then, of course, that nightmarish count began, where were they going to go? Were they going to go up? Were they going to go down? And the UK kept rising and rising.
We did well.
What?
We did well, didn't we?
We did.
Yeah.
And eventually, we got to the stage where we were voting, and I said, well, I'm voting for Ukraine, so I voted for Ukraine. They said, we will... I said, no, you can't. You're not allowed. You're Ukrainian.
Yeah.
So they voted for the UK, and we just sat there and cheered when Ukraine won, and we were second. And in the past, I've always got really cross when the voting has been very political.
Oh, I know.
You know, Eastern European countries have voted for each other.
Maybe
Cyprus.
Brexit Britain's now been accepted. Maybe that's what it is.
Well, I'm not going to talk to you about Brexit at all, as you know.
It's fine. We run out of time
As
anyway,
you know.
and I've avoided it.
But the politics in this one was fine. Ukraine deserved it.
I want to say thank you very much for coming on as my guest. Fascinating, and well done for everything you've done in broadcasting. Brilliant. Dame Jenni,
Cheers.
thank you very much indeed.
Again.
Thank you.
Cheers.